what has Malik done so far this season to kind of impress you since he's been back the most? And where have you kind of seen the most growth from him, especially since his, first year here?
Yeah. I think Malik is certainly extremely talented. I think one of the things for him is consistency of staying healthy, which has been the challenge. I think, got dinged up right at the end of fall camp. Really had a great fall camp, had a really positive spring. And then, I think one of the things for us was you saw on Saturday, it's really the first game I would say he's truly played, other than the Clemson game, that he's truly played for us. And so, I thought there were some real positives. There's a lot of work to be done, if he wants to be a guy that continues to be a mainstay right now. But, man, I think that guy can certainly help us. He's a high-end tackler. He's a big physical body. He's a great young man, and I only think he's going to continue to get better. He's just young, and he needs to go play and continue to play football for us. But I think length, ability to tackle in space, obviously athleticism, all those things check the box, and certainly his process and continuing to grow within the defense, it's going to be really fun to watch his career continue to blossom.
Thank you. And then this will be a little bit similar to Dallas, but I guess this morning Coach Leipold said similarly that, Iowa State is a program that they're looking to emulate. What do you think of, hearing something like that, and what does it kind of mean to you, again, as he says something like that about you guys here?
Yeah, I think, again, I think for Coach Leipold and myself, I think we both have come up a very similar way, and I appreciate him saying that. I think the reality is, certainly his path and our path here, our staff's path, it's very similar. I mean, we're Division III coaches. We've worked our way up from the ground up. Not many people can emulate what we do because they haven't gone through the journey that we've gone through. And so, I think that's why we knew they would have great success, and they have done a great job already. And it's not, what we do is not rocket science. So, I think it takes the right people to align programs the right way, and I think they have a very similar background and a very similar pattern to what we have had in our journey. So, again, I think there's a lot of respect between both programs.
Matt, what's going on in the what's going on in the Big 12, and what's been the reason?
Yeah, it hasn't been that way really, honestly, Randy. I think if we really look back the last couple of years, I mean, top to bottom, I think this conference, you got to play everybody, which I think the rest of the so-called big conferences don't do that. Number two, I think the reality is, a lot of good coaches, a lot of good quarterbacks. I think teams that have invested in both sides of the football and are trying to be complete football teams. And, I think when you get that, you get a lot of parity right now, and you get a lot of really good teams. And I said this a year ago, and I think even before that is, you better bring your A game or you're going to get beat. It doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter where you're at, it doesn't matter what it is. You got to play A football to win football games. And, man, you can play B-plus football and still get beat right now. So credit to everybody in this conference.
For Kansas particularly, I know Kansas was still roster-wise a little bit reeling because of the whole Weiss situation. The NCAA rule, the change of the rules, how do you think that's benefited Kansas? More scholarships, the whole portal thing. They've got 19 depth chart guys out of the portal. I mean,
yeah, I that's a great question. I think obviously, boy, we can look around college football and know how teams reshape their roster this year, right? I mean, you saw teams, I'm not going to name the teams, but totally reshape a entire program. So, it is what it is. It's the new age of college athletics. And, I think anytime you can certainly get your team back to 85 scholarships immediately, that's a benefit. It's something we had to work through for the first 3 years here. We weren't at a full 85 until our third season. So, that's a challenge. It's unique. But, I think anytime you can have 85 scholarship players in your program to start fall camp, obviously that is something that is a huge positive for anybody building a team.
How do you approach your guys' preparation for Kansas's run game?
Obviously you're going to have to do a great job in terms of being alignment and assignment sound. I think one of the things that is positive for us is there were things from Saturday that we didn't do very well. And it started with kind of our discipline of our eyes. And, I think this group is going to challenge every facet of that. I think what they do pre-snap to what they do post-snap is they constantly put your eyes and your discipline in conflict. And, we're just going to have to do a great job of doing that. The growth from last week to this week for us is going to have to be critical for our success.
What has worked in your guys' run defense through 4 games?
I think when we have played well and consistently in those areas, it does go back to that. I think we're gap sound, we have gap integrity, and we certainly have our eyes where they need to be, and our fits are really good. And, again, number one, they've got an outstanding quarterback that's going to threaten that on every play. And then number two, what they do with the different motions and the different type of scheme, they challenge you. And so credit to them. I think they've done a great job of putting their offensive kids in great position to be successful.
Matt Daniels, their quarterback, since he became the starter, he seems to personify winning. How would you describe what he's about?
It's funny you say that, Rob, because I said to, I think, our staff this morning, one of the things that's probably so impressive about him is you look at him and you're like, man, I want to be around that kid. As a coach and as opposing coach, I think how he carries himself, how he plays the game, you just have a real appreciation for him. You can tell the kids believe in him. He believes in him. He's having fun playing. And I think, again, the credit there has to go a little bit to, man, you do a great job of putting your players in position to be successful. I talk about that all the time in our program, right? Players, formations, plays. And I think that's what you see is you see a young man that certainly has talent, and he's being put in great position to use his talent, and he's enjoying playing the game, and he's putting his team in great position to have success.
And MJ Anderson, for you, a guy who's navigated through some things, obviously, in Minnesota, maybe some injuries, I think, but what's he showing you now on the field?
Yeah, I think one of the real joys of what I've watched in terms of, MJ got here, and you guys probably don't know this, I think came in, started working out right away, and just elbow wasn't right, and had gotten injured in Minnesota. Kind of felt like our best interest was to have surgery. So, missed the bulk load of spring practice, really all of spring practice for us, but we got that taken care of right away. And, one of the things I really have enjoyed about MJ is he loves football, and he really goes to work at it. And even through that journey of getting back healthy, it's been a real joy to watch his process. I mean, how he works, how he goes about his business. He had a great summer. He was back to full strength by June when we were back here. And, man, he had a great camp. And I feel like, it's been interesting. Game 1 and 2, he was so close to making some plays. Man, he's right there. And game 3 and 4, man, he's making some big plays. And I think you just consistently see him getting better and better and better. And I think he's got a really bright future. I think he's got a chance to be really special. And who he is on top of it has fit us greatly, and just really proud of certainly what we've seen so far, and excited to see where he can go and take his ability. But so far it's been a great journey for us to have him in our program.
What have you seen out of Kansas's Jalen Daniels?
I think very similar to a little bit of just what I talked about. I think a guy that's extremely confident, a young man that has got elite athleticism, his ability to really challenge you every time the ball is in his hand. And, as soon as you think, man, he's just going to be a runner, you'd be false. What is he, 19 for 23 last week, and his efficiency to make you pay in the passing game, and has done a great job of it. So, again, to me, just a very confident football player, and a guy that can challenge you every single time the ball's in his hands.
And then compared to the past years of Kansas teams, what sticks out to you differently about this team that they might not have had?
Yeah, I don't think, to me, it's hard to kind of quantify where it was, but I think again, you saw this coming. We played them last year, and man, you saw a really good football team on the verge of becoming really good. And all the pieces, tailbacks, offensive linemen, tight ends. You saw some of the guys on the defensive side of the football, and I think most of those guys that we played against a year ago are all back. And, you see a group that was really kind of getting put in place. And, I know for Coach Leipold, it was hard because he got there late. And you saw that group kind of evolve. And then by the end of the football season, man, obviously they have a big win on the road at the end of the season. And I think just a group that was continuing to be put in place to be very successful.
Yeah, last week we talked a little bit about kind of the mental lapses that led to some of the penalties, and you mentioned here you guys really have to be disciplined this week. How do you go about that during practice and your preparation? Is that something that can be addressed in drills, or because it's a mental thing, how do you guys go about addressing that and correcting that?
Well, I'm not so worried about our discipline. I don't think that's an issue. I think some of the issues that we had were youth issues in the game of, where we were maybe just a hair off in terms of, man, how we fit in our scheme, some of the fundamentals in some critical moments. Those were probably the biggest challenges to what happened on Saturday, where I really felt the game came down to, the third quarter, and we had regained the momentum and overcome some other people's challenges and had the opportunity to maybe grasp the game, and we let that slip. And so, I think for us, those are all things that, man, what a great opportunity to learn from, great opportunity to grow from. And I think it's, as this football team continues to evolve, can we sink back and learn from that quarter and really take it forward with us?
Couple of questions, one on Jake Remsburg and Cartavius Norton. Is this the week that Jake gets back in there, do you think? And then Cartavius, he saw a few snaps early in that game. Was he just not really ready to go yet, or was it more a function of you wanting to get Jirel more work?
Yeah, I think obviously I would just say they're both back. They were both back last week. I think we're trying to navigate both of those guys coming back the right way, but both guys are back and ready to play.
We've all seen at least from clear up there or wherever we are, what Will McDonald goes through each game. What can he do to, overcome that? Because that's the way it's going to be the rest of the year for him, I assume.
Yeah, he just gotta play football. Again, I overcome. I think for Will, he's just got to continue to grow. There's some things. He had 2 penalties that are real penalties, right, that happened on Saturday, and so those can't happen. And then on top of it, I still think Will has such a huge effect on the game. I think he's playing really good football. The little discipline things that happened on Saturday probably were my greater concerns, not where is he or what are they doing schematically. Because, again, as I've heard Will say multiple times, man, if there's going to be 3 guys on Will, then there's going to be a lot of opportunities for the M.J. Andersons and Isaiah Lees of the world. So, I think, again, we continue to move him around, put him in spots to affect the game. But, man, I for Will McDonald, I'm not real concerned about him.
And I wasn't meaning
Yep.
any of that. Along that same vein, Kansas has only given up 1 sack, I believe. What do they do that's allowing that?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and we hit on this a little bit Saturday, is, they have played pretty much in rhythm to how they would want to play the football game. I think, number one, I think they get rid of the ball with great efficiency. The ball's getting out of his hands. It's not a lot of drop back passing. Man, it is quick. Get the ball out of his hands, get the ball in space. I think, again, they've played from ahead a lot. I know the West Virginia game they were down, but quickly got themselves back ahead in that football game. And I think that certainly helps you play in a system where, you're kind of put the game and the flow of the game in your hands, not in situations where you got to sit back there and hold the football for a long period of time.
Matt, you have Big 12 best in takeaways. Is there an art to that? Is that luck-based? Is that something you teach? Like, how do you approach kind of the takeaway aspect of the defensive side?
Yeah, and if you would have asked that question a year ago, we would not been there, right? We were not great there a year ago, and I don't think it's certainly luck-based. I think it's things where, again, it goes back to practicing it, identifying it, and then trying to do a great job of putting our guys in position to allow those things to happen. You know, we work on that every day in practice. You know, it's something for us that we take really seriously because we know the impact it has on the football game. But, you know, I would say so far, to the credit of our kids, is we have been in position and we've made the plays. We've drawn back on the fundamentals that we've worked in practice, and we've made some of those plays. Now, you know, we weren't able to make a play on Saturday in that regard, and you saw, you know, the difference in the game maybe was the turnover battle, you know. And so I think all those things for us, when you live in our margins and you live in the margin for error is thin, and as Randy said, man, everybody's good and everybody can beat anybody. Those are the things you got to be great at, and we're going to have to continue to move ourselves forward and continue to be great in that aspect of it for us to be successful. So I think it's a great point.